Hey Grid, welcome to another episode of the Lockdown Podcast. As always, I'm your host, TFA. I want to start off this week by discussing league activity here over the past few weeks. We're getting to a point where many people are currently stepping up and contributing, and that's really great to see. So great job to everyone who has started going above and beyond what has been asked of them, whether it be making videos, magazine covers, running the Twitter handles, or just lending a helping hand to others. The effort levels have been great, so keep it up, guys. It's really awesome to see so many people willing to lend a hand and take that extra step that is needed once you reach the big leagues of NBL. On that note, I want to jump into the standings and discuss how the playoff race is shaping up for each league. In the AFC, the playoff picture is beginning to take form. Currently, you have the Jags holding down the number 1 seed at 11-1. The Jets currently hold the number 2 seed at 9-3. However, they faltered 2 straight weeks and they really look to be struggling. The Ravens hold the number 3 seed right now at 7-5, while the Chiefs come in as the final division leader at 6-6. The first of the 2 wildcard spots, the 5th seed, is currently held by the Houston Texans at 11-1. They're going to be tied right now with the Jags for the division lead, so it's going to be really interesting to see which one of those teams can make the first round bye or, get stuck with a wildcard spot. The 6th seed right now, the final playoff spot, is currently held by the Buffalo Bills at 9-3. The Bills and the Jets hold the same record right now, so, the Jets currently have a 1-0 advantage. I beat the Bills a couple weeks ago here to take a 1-0 advantage head-to-head on this season. We will meet again in Week 16, though, in a matchup that could decide who wins the division and who gets that coveted first-round bye. The Tennessee Titans are the only team right now that look like they can challenge for a wild card spot at the moment. They sit at 9-3 as well, but they're in a division with the Texans and Jags right now, so it's going to be really tough on them if they can make the playoffs. Tight divisional races in the AFC North and AFC West could come down to Week 17 as the Raiders and Chiefs both sit at 6-6. The Pittsburgh Steelers sit at 6-6, just a game back of the division-leading Ravens in the AFC North. So this is going to be a really interesting 2-team race in both these divisions to see who can go ahead and pull out that playoff spot and who can kind of squeak in as that 3 or 4 seed. It doesn't look like either of these teams is going to be fighting for a first-round bye, but they're both definitely fighting to have home field for the first round of the playoffs. Heading over to the NFC, we currently see the Green Bay Packers leading the way as the number 1 seed at 8-4. Astounding that the best team in the NFC is 8-4 right now. The AFC has 5 teams that all have a better record up until this point, so that's a pretty interesting fact when you think about it. The entire playoff race right now in the NFC is currently insane. You've got 8 teams right now that are all within a game of each other. So whether they're 7-5, 7-4, 8-4, you've got 8 teams right now that are fighting for those 6 playoff spots. The Rams, the Panthers, and the Packers are your current division leaders, while the Cowboys, the Giants, and the Eagles are all tied atop the NFC East. This is going to be one of the craziest playoff races we have ever seen, and it could very well go into Week 17 with not a single team clinching a division or a playoff spot. Taking a look at the league leaders, Carson Wentz right now in his sophomore season is taking the lead in passing yards. However, Joe Flacco sits right behind him, only 5 yards back. Blake Bortles continues to impress as he leads the league in both QBR and total touchdowns. Lamar Miller continues his torrid pace on the season, leading the league with 1,173 rushing yards and 16 rushing touchdowns. I think the real story this season, though, at running back is Lance Dunbar of the Buffalo Bills, who has managed to catch up to Miller, who is setting himself apart from the rest of the league. Dunbar right now currently sits at 1,132 rushing yards, and he has 13 touchdowns. This guy is without a doubt been the MVP on the season. The Bills wouldn't be sitting at 9-3 if it wasn't for him. Receiving-wise, we have Julio Jones leading the league with 1,171 yards and 8 touchdowns. And then right behind him, you have Philip Dorsett is the only other 1,000-yard receiver so far on the season with 1,154 yards, so less than 20 yards separating those two. Both have 8 touchdowns. On the defensive side of the ball, middle linebacker Deion Jones of the Falcons leads with a total of 90 tackles. Ray Maluga right now sits second with 88. Outside linebacker Sean Lee currently leads the league with 17 tackles for a loss, and Justin Houston right on his heels with 16. Left end Khalil Mack of the Oakland Raiders currently leads the league with 16.5 sacks, but rookie left end Dejon Rogers-Cromartie, younger brother of cornerback Dominique Rogers-Cromartie, is right now second in sacks with 15.5. Cornerbacks Ronald Darby of the Bills and DeAndre Hall of the Cowboys are currently tied for the league lead with 7 interceptions apiece. Looking at the awards races after 13 weeks, Lance Dunbar, Lamar Miller, and Blake Bortles right now are the clear frontrunners for MVP. It's really anybody's race up until this point, and I really think it's going to come down to the end of the season to see who has those weeks that stand out above the rest. Bill O'Brien right now, the Texans, currently leads Coach of the Year voting. Gus Bradley of the Jags, no surprise, right there behind. In the AFC, the Offensive Player of the Year voting is the same as the MVP voting. Lance Dunbar leads the way currently. Khalil Mack leads the AFC Defensive Player of the Year voting. Quarterback Noah Skelton of the New York Jets currently leads the AFC Offensive Rookie of the Year voting, while his top tight end target, Trent Copeland, also a rookie, comes in at third in the voting. Chargers' Jeff Jackson sits second in between the two. The AFC Defensive Rookie of the Year voting right now shows left end, as we talked about him earlier. Dejan Rogers-Cromartie, he is running away with the AFC Defensive Rookie of the Year, sitting there at those 15.5 sacks already. Heading over to the NFC, we have a couple of Packers leading the way for Offensive Player of the Year voting, as Eddie Lacy and Aaron Rodgers sit 1-2. Defensive Player of the Year voting, much like offensive, shows two Packers right there at the top, as Mike Daniels and Tanner Gage lead the way. A little crazy to think about the fact that the Packers right now are leading the NFC at 8-4, and it shows why, because they have two guys at the top of the Offensive Player of the Year and two guys at the top of the Defensive Player of the Year voting. Right now, Bears rookie quarterback Will Huntington currently leads the NFC Offensive Rookie of the Year voting, as the Packers' Trevor Gage looks to make it a clean sweep and win both NFC Defensive Rookie of the Year and Defensive Player of the Year. I'll have more on these races here as the season closes out, and here towards the end of the season, we're going to do an end-of-season award show and kind of wrap up all the in-season awards that some people might not have looked at or might not be aware about. That's going to do it for this week's episode of the Lockdown Podcast. Tune in next week as the playoff races should be coming to an end, and the playoff picture, along with my predictions, will be released. As always, I'm your host, TFA.